Hey guys, tonight we're going to step back in time, all the way to the dawn of the Industrial Revolution, to a world that looks both familiar and utterly alien. We're going to put ourselves in the shoes of a child, not a king or a queen, but a small, anonymous figure caught in the gears of a brand new, terrifying machine. This isn't the story of grand inventions or heroic figures. It's the story of what it was really like for the children who built that new world with their own small, tired hands. It's a disturbing truth that history often glosses over. A story you might not have heard before. This isn't a fairy tale, you probably wouldn't have survived it. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're listening in, wherever you are, feel free to drop your location and local time in the comments. It's always fascinating to see how far these stories travel. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You are 8 years old, a time when your only real job should be to play, but your world has changed. The quiet, green fields of the countryside, the smell of fresh hay and damp earth, are a distant memory. A new kind of landscape has risen from the ground, a land of towering brick buildings that belch black smoke into the sky. You arrived here with your family, packed into a rattling cart, drawn by the irresistible promise of work. The factories, your parents were told, are a path to a better life, a place where a family could earn enough to escape the brutal cycle of rural poverty. The promise was a siren song, luring you away from the life you knew into a world of concrete and iron. You stand on a cobbled street, the air thick with the smell of coal smoke, and something you can't quite place, a metallic, oily scent. The noise is a constant. Low-level roar, 100 different machines all working at once. A sound that vibrates in your chest and rattles the windows of the cramped, grimy tenement your family now calls home. Your father, a man whose hands were once calloused by farm tools, now works a different kind of land, the factory floor. But the family's survival, you quickly learn, is not just his burden, it is everyone's, even yours. Your first day at the factory is a blur of new sensations, all of them overwhelming. The building itself is a monster, a 3-story brick behemoth with more windows than you can count, all of them clouded with a layer of grime. You are led through a massive set of double doors, and the noise hits you like a physical force. The clatter and clang of machines, the hiss of steam, the roar of the furnaces, it's a cacophony so loud you can barely hear your own thoughts. The air is hot and thick with a fine, gritty dust that makes you cough, and the smell of hot metal and industrial grease fills your lungs. It's a completely different world from the one you left behind. You are a small thing, a child of 8. This is exactly what the factory owner is looking for. Your small hands can reach into the tight spaces of the machines where an adult's cannot. Your nimble fingers can perform tasks that are too delicate for a grown man. You are a valuable commodity, a perfect fit for the new industrial age. The irony, of course, is that the very same people who created these machines, these marvels of human ingenuity, also saw a child as little more than another piece of equipment. A small, cheap cog in a much larger machine. Your first job is simple, or so you are told. You are a scavenger in a textile mill. A job that involves crawling under the massive, whirring looms to pick up pieces of cotton and other debris. The space under the looms is narrow and dark, and the noise is deafening. The machines are a forest of moving parts, a relentless blur of pistons and belts. Your job is to move quickly, to snatch the scraps before the next cycle of the machine begins. You are told to be careful, but what they don't tell you is that careful is not a word that exists in the factory. There is only fast. You move on your hands and knees, your small body a perfect fit for the claustrophobic space. You feel the heat of the machinery, the tremor of the floor beneath you, and you are constantly aware of the terrifying possibility of getting caught. of a loose thread or a flapping piece of your tunic getting snagged in the mechanism. This is a stark and uncomfortable truth that is often glossed over in textbooks. A common historical fact is that children as young as 4 were employed in factories, and they were often paid a pittance for work that was both dangerous and demanding. The money, however, was often the difference between a family eating or starving. So there was little choice. The first day feels endless. You lose all sense of time. The sun rises and sets, but in the grime-caked factory, it's always a dull, perpetual twilight. A haze of dust and flickering gas lamps. The only thing that marks the passage of time is the changing of the shifts, and the long, agonizing walk home to your cramped tenement. You come home covered in soot and grime, your small hands scraped and bruised, but you are also a worker now. You have earned your keep. You have contributed to the family's survival. And in the quiet moments before sleep, your body aching and your mind still ringing with the noise of the factory, you feel a small, fragile flicker of pride. You are a part of this new world, for better or for worse. You don't realize yet that the factory has already begun to change you, that the grime is a permanent mark, and the noise is a constant echo that will never leave you. An interesting and little-known historical detail is that many of the early factories were built next to rivers, not only for water power, but also to get around certain laws. Some of the first child labor laws were passed in cities, but these rural-based mills were often outside of these jurisdictions. Allowing them to exploit children more freely, it was a clever, if cruel, loophole that allowed the practice to thrive. The exhaustion is a physical weight, a bone-deep weariness that settles into your small frame. Your dreams are not of meadows or running streams, but of a world of pistons and levers. A nightmare of endless, repetitive motion. You wake up with a gasp, a moment of confusion where you don't know where you are, but the noise of the factory, even from a distance, is a constant reminder. It's an alarm clock, a call to duty. You are a child, yes, but you are also a worker, a cog in the machine. Your innocence, your youth, your very body, they are all being consumed by the relentless, unyielding rhythm of the industrial age. This raises a question that historians still debate. Historians still debate whether the parents who sent their children to work in these factories were simply desperate people with no other choice, or if there was a deeper cultural shift in how childhood was viewed during this period. You don't have an answer. You only know the reality. Your parents are tired, worried, and relieved to see you come home. Even with your scrapes and bruises, you know they love you, but you also know that your future, and theirs, is now inextricably linked to the clang and clatter of the factory. Your journey has just begun, and you know, deep down, that it is going to be a very, very long road. The initial shock of the factory has given way to a grim routine. The novelty of the machines has worn off, replaced by the crushing reality of their unyielding grip. What? You are no longer just a child in a new world. You are a cog in a machine. A small, expendable part of a process that cares nothing for your well-being. The days are a monotonous cycle of labor, fear, and bone-deep exhaustion. Your small hands, once soft, are now calloused and stained with grease. The scrapes and bruises from your first days under the looms are now a permanent part of your body. You've learned to move with a strange, unnatural speed. Your small body a blur of motion as you snatch up the stray threads and cotton scraps. The constant noise has become a part of you, a ringing in your ears that never truly goes away. You can no longer hear the quiet moments, the soft whispers of your mother or the rustle of leaves in a forgotten dream. The factory has taken your hearing and given you in its place a constant, low-level tinnitus, the sound of progress. Your fellow workers are like you, small, silent, and covered in the same layer of grime. You rarely speak. There's no time for it. The foreman, a large, gruff man with a loud voice and an even louder whistle, is a constant, terrifying presence. He patrols the aisles, his eyes like a hawk's, searching for any sign of idleness or a mistake. A single moment of hesitation, a single lapse in concentration, can result in a sharp cuff to the back of the head or a beating from a leather strap. You learn quickly to move with a purpose, to keep your eyes on the task, to never, ever stop. The factory teaches you a kind of silent obedience, a survival skill that is both necessary and soul-crushing. This is the disturbing truth of the industrial era for many children. The workplace was not a place of opportunity, but a place of violence and intimidation. A common historical fact is that physical punishment was the norm in these early factories and mines. Children were beaten for being too slow, for falling asleep, or for making a mistake. The factory was a microcosm of a much larger, more brutal world, and you are its smallest, most vulnerable citizen. The exhaustion is a constant companion. Your shift can last for 12, 14, even 16 hours a day. A time frame that seems impossible for a grown man, let alone a child. You eat a meager meal of bread and watery soup, often while still on the factory floor, the food tasting of the dust that coats everything. Sleep, when it finally comes, is not a rest, but a temporary reprieve. A short, dark window before the relentless cycle begins again. You fall into a deep, dreamless slumber, your body a mass of aches and pains. You wake up feeling just as tired as you did when you went to bed. The factory is not just consuming your time, it is consuming your very essence. An interesting and little-known historical detail is the role of factory owners' clocks. Many factories would set their clocks forward in the morning and back in the evening, squeezing even more hours out of their workers without technically breaking any laws about shift times. It was a clever, if cruel, deception that was rampant in the early industrial era. The factory clock, you learn, is not a measure of time, but a tool of oppression. You learn the subtle art of survival, a silent agreement you have with the other children. You learn to share a sip of water when the foreman isn't looking. You learn to signal a warning with a glance, a quick nod of the head when danger is approaching. You learn to look out for each other. A quiet, unspoken rebellion against the system that is trying to crush you. You are no longer just an individual, you are part of a collective, a silent army of children bound together by their shared suffering. This bond, however fragile, is a source of strength, a small ember of hope in a world of darkness. Historians still debate whether this collective suffering fostered a sense of community among child laborers, or if the brutal conditions bred an every child for themselves mentality, where self-preservation was the only rule. You only know the reality of your own world. You know the small comfort of a shared glance, the silent understanding that you are all in this together, the relentless rhythm of the machines, the deafening noise, the constant fear they have all become a part of your life. You are a child who has been stripped of their childhood, a small person who has been asked to carry the weight of an entire new world on their back. The factory is a place of progress for some, a marvel of human ingenuity. But for you, it is a monster, a relentless beast that feeds on the energy and innocence of children, and your only hope is to survive its unyielding grip. One long, agonizing day at a time, the mill's unyielding grip, a world of ceaseless noise and choking dust, has been your reality. But you are about to be plunged into a new, even more terrifying kind of darkness. One morning, you are not sent to the textile mill, but instead are led away from the familiar clatter and hiss. Your destination is the coal mine, a treacherous world deep beneath the earth, a place where the dangers are no longer abstract, but immediate, and the sense of isolation is a crushing weight. The descent into the mine is a sensory shock. The air, once thick with cotton dust, now smells of damp rock and an earthy, heavy odor. The daylight fades with each step you take down a long, narrow tunnel, and the clamor of the factory is replaced by a different kind of noise, the rhythmic thud of a pickaxe, the scraping of shovels, and the quiet, unnerving drip of water from the ceiling. You are a small, fragile creature entering a world of immense, unyielding rock, a place of suffocating darkness and profound danger. Your job in the mine is that of a hurrier. You are given a heavy chain and a small wagon, and your task is to haul the coal through the narrow tunnels to the main shaft. The tunnels are barely tall enough for a small child to stand, and you spend your days bent over, your back aching with the strain. The coal wagons are heavy, often too heavy for one child, so you are sometimes harnessed to another, a silent partner in your misery. The work is physically brutal, a test of endurance that no child should ever have to face. This is a stark and uncomfortable truth that is often glossed over. A common historical fact is that children, often as young as 4, were used as trappers in the mines, sitting alone in the dark for hours to open and close ventilation doors. The isolation and the darkness were a form of psychological torture, and many children never fully recovered. The darkness is a constant, oppressive presence. You have a small candle, but its flickering light barely pushes back the gloom. The shadows it casts on the walls of the tunnel are a constant source of fear, taking on strange, monstrous shapes in your tired mind. You are deep underground, cut off from the sun, the sky, the very world you knew. The air is heavy and stale, and you are constantly aware of the profound danger of a cave-in. Every creak of the wooden supports, every distant rumble, sends a jolt of pure terror through your small body. You are not just a worker, you are a living sacrifice to the demands of the industrial age. An interesting and little-known historical detail is the presence of pit ponies in the mines. These small horses, often blind from a life spent in the darkness, were used to haul the heavier coal wagons. Many children who worked in the mines developed a strange and powerful bond with these animals, finding a silent companion in their shared misery. You find yourself talking to the pony, a one-sided conversation that is both a comfort and a heartbreaking sign of your profound loneliness. The isolation is a new kind of psychological torment. In the factory, you were surrounded by other children, a quiet army of shared suffering. But here, in the mine, you are often alone, or with only one other child. You spend hours in a silence that is broken only by the sound of your own ragged breathing and the distant scrape of a shovel. Your mind, once filled with the constant noise of the factory, is now a silent, echoing chamber. And in that silence, your fear has room to grow, to fester, to become a monster of its own. Historians still debate whether the physical dangers of the mines or the profound psychological toll of the darkness and isolation was a more damaging force for child laborers. You don't have an answer. You only know that the darkness is a weight on your soul, a physical and emotional burden that feels even heavier than the coal wagons you haul. You are a child who has been taken from the sunlight, from the world, and plunged into a hellish realm of rock and blackness. And you know, deep in your heart, that a part of you will never truly see the light again. You have escaped the crushing darkness of the mines, but the relief is short-lived. The factory floor, once a familiar torment, now feels like a prison with a roof. You are back in the textile mill, but your job has changed. You are no longer a scavenger, but a piecer, a cog in the massive, deafening world of the spinning looms. The work is different, but the exploitation is the same, and the weight of the loom, a physical and psychological burden, is a new kind of cruelty. Your new job as a piecer is a test of dexterity, speed, and endurance. The looms are a forest of iron, their moving parts a mesmerizing, relentless blur, as a thread on one of the spindles breaks. Your job is to quickly and skillfully tie the two loose ends back together. You are a small, frantic blur of motion. Your nimble fingers a crucial part of the machine's efficiency. You move from one loom to the next, your mind and body a single, focused entity, a perfect fit for the relentless rhythm of the industrial age. The constant, repetitive motion leaves your fingers bruised and your small back aching with the strain of being bent over for hours at a time. The noise is a constant, deafening roar, 100 looms all clattering at once. It's a sound that fills every corner of the factory, a noise that you can't escape. You try to speak to the other children, your silent comrades, but your words are lost in the cacophony. The only way to communicate is through a shared glance. A small nod of the head, a look of shared exhaustion. The noise, you realize, is not just a physical assault on your hearing, it is a psychological barrier, a wall that prevents you from forming any real human connection. You are alone in a crowd, a silent figure in a world of endless noise. This is a stark and uncomfortable truth that is often overlooked. A common historical fact is that the noise levels in these early textile mills were so high that many children suffered from permanent hearing loss. For a child, a world of silence is a terrifying thing, but a world of endless, deafening noise is a different kind of hell. An interesting and little-known historical detail is the presence of overlookers, who were often children themselves. Promoted to a supervisory role, these children were often given a small amount of extra pay to police the other children, and they were often more brutal than the adult foremen. Perhaps as a way of demonstrating their loyalty and authority, you find yourself watching these children with a mixture of fear and pity, realizing that, even in this brutal world, there is a hierarchy of cruelty. The physical dangers of the looms are a constant, terrifying reality. A single moment of distraction, a single wrong move, can result in your fingers being crushed or your hair being caught in the gears. The fear of injury is a constant companion, a low-level anxiety that never goes away. You learn to move with a strange, unnatural precision. Your body a finely tuned instrument of survival, but you also know that no matter how careful you are, an accident is always just a moment away, a cruel twist of fate that could end your life, or at the very least, end your career. Historians still debate whether the psychological trauma of constant fear in a dangerous workplace was more damaging to a child than the physical injuries they endured. You don't have an answer. You only know the reality of your own body, the constant aches and pains, the slow, agonizing decay of your youthful vigor. The weight of the loom is a heavy one, and you are a child who has been forced to carry it on your back. You are a small, fragile figure in a world of iron and steel, and your only hope is to survive its relentless grip, one broken thread at a time. You have survived the textile mills and the dark, suffocating mines, but the cost of your survival is becoming painfully clear. The relentless rhythm of the machines, the deafening noise, the endless hours, they are not just a part of your daily life. They are slowly and inexorably changing you. You are a child witnessing firsthand the profound physical and social changes wrought by the Industrial Revolution. A world of progress that is built on the slow decay of your own body. Your body is no longer a child's body. The soft, supple skin of your youth is now scarred and calloused. The constant bending and stooping have given you a permanent hunch, and your limbs are thin and wiry from the meager rations and relentless labor. You are a walking testament to the physical toll of your work. You are, in effect, a new kind of human being, a product of the industrial age. You see it in the other children as well, the pale faces, the hollow eyes, the unnaturally small stature. You are a community of stunted, weary souls, a generation of children who will never grow to their full potential, their bodies forever marked by the work they did to survive. The cities themselves are a reflection of this decay. The air is thick with a perpetual layer of black soot and smog. A gritty, foul-smelling blanket that hangs over everything? The rivers, once a source of life, are now choked with industrial waste. Their waters a murky, foul-smelling brown. You are living in a world that is literally dying. A world of progress that is consuming its own environment with a terrifying, insatiable hunger. The world you left behind the green fields, the clean air, the clear water feels like a distant, impossible dream. This new world is a world of gray, a world of grime, a world that is slowly and inexorably poisoning itself. This is a stark and uncomfortable truth that is often overlooked. A common historical fact is that the life expectancy for workers in these early industrial cities was significantly lower than for their rural counterparts. The combination of long hours, dangerous work, poor sanitation, and air pollution created a perfect storm of disease and early death. For you, the promise of a better life has led you to a world that is slowly killing you. An interesting and little-known historical detail is the belief in consumption as a romantic disease. While we now know that consumption was a tuberculosis caused by poor sanitation and air quality, in the 19th century, it was often romanticized as a disease that made its victims more sensitive and beautiful. This bizarre cultural quirk was a way for a society to cope with a brutal reality it couldn't or wouldn't face. You, however, know the truth. You know that there is nothing beautiful or romantic about the slow decay of a body, about the rasping cough that is a constant presence in the factories and tenements. The psychological changes are just as profound as the physical ones. The endless, repetitive work has dulled your mind, and you find it difficult to remember things from your past. From the time before the factory, your dreams are not of meadows or running streams, but of the ceaseless motion of machines, a nightmare of pistons and levers. You are a child whose imagination has been stolen, a person whose inner world has been replaced by the cold, mechanical logic of the factory. You are, in effect, a new kind of person, a child who has been molded and shaped not by love and play, but by the cold, unforgiving hand of industrialization. This raises a long-standing academic debate. Historians still debate whether the psychological damage to child laborers was primarily due to the physical hardship and fear, or if the deeper, more profound damage came from the loss of a childhood and the theft of imagination and a sense of self. You don't have an answer. You only know that you are a different person now, a person who can't remember what it was like to simply be a child. The world has changed, and you, the child who helped to build it, have changed right along with it. A small, sad testament to the true cost of progress. The crushing monotony and profound hardship of your life have a surprising side effect. As the machines and the noise try to grind you down into nothing, a quiet, stubborn rebellion begins to stir. You are a child who has been stripped of so much, but you still possess a fundamental human need for connection and defiance. In the grim world of the factory, you find small ways to resist, forming fragile bonds with other children, and nurturing the flicker of a dream for a life beyond the oppressive walls. The factory floor, once a place of individual suffering, slowly transforms into a landscape of shared, unspoken defiance. During the brief, precious moments of your meal break, you find a quiet corner with other children. You don't speak much. There's too much noise and not enough time. Instead, you share. A small piece of bread is broken in half and passed to a friend. A sip of water from a tin cup is offered to a thirsty comrade. These are not grand gestures, they're small, quiet acts of rebellion, a way of saying, we are more than just workers. We are human beings who care for each other. This shared meal is a sacred ritual, a brief moment of humanity in a world that is trying to dehumanize you. Your dreams, once stolen by the monotonous rhythm of the machines, begin to come back to you in these quiet moments. You listen to the stories of the older children, the ones who remember a time before the factory. They speak of green fields and flowing streams, of a world filled with the sound of birds and the smell of fresh earth. You listen with a kind of desperate hunger, a child starved for beauty and hope. These stories, these glimpses of a world you have never known, become the fuel for your own dreams. You dream of a life where you are not defined by the clang of the loom or the dark of the mine. You dream of a life where you can run and play and feel the sun on your face without a constant low-level fear. This is a stark and uncomfortable truth that is often overlooked. A common historical fact is that these small moments of connection and shared dreams were a vital part of the child laborer's survival. They were not just victims, they were also active agents in their own survival. Finding ways to endure a system that was designed to break them? An interesting and little-known historical detail is the phenomenon of factory children's songs. These were often simple rhymes or songs created by the children themselves, often containing coded messages of defiance or a longing for freedom. They would sing them in a low murmur, a quiet, rhythmic chant that was almost indistinguishable from the noise of the machines. It was a way for them to reclaim a piece of their identity, a way to say, "We are here, and we are still human." The quiet rebellion is not just in your dreams or your songs, it is in your actions as well. You learn the art of a quiet slowdown, of a deliberate misstep that costs a few precious moments without drawing the attention of the foreman. You learn to hide a small, precious object, a polished stone, a piece of string, a small totem of the world you are fighting to remember. These are not acts of sabotage, they are acts of self-preservation. Small, quiet ways of saying no to a system that demands your complete and total obedience. Historians still debate whether these small acts of resistance had any real impact on the larger system of child labor, or if they were simply a coping mechanism for the children who endured it. You don't have an answer. You only know the reality of your own world. You know that a shared piece of bread, a whispered story, a small polished stone, they are not just objects or gestures, they are lifelines. They are the small, quiet acts of defiance that keep you from being completely consumed by the unyielding grip of the factory. You are a child in a brutal world, but you are not alone. And in that quiet, shared resistance, there is a small, fragile flicker of hope. Your quiet rebellion and the fragile bonds you formed with other children are a source of strength. But they cannot stop the inevitable, the relentless rhythm of the machines, the choking dust of the factory floor, the darkness of the mines. They are not just temporary hardships. They are leaving permanent marks, deep scars on your body and your mind. You are a child who is slowly and inexorably being broken by the strain, a living testament to the true cost of progress. You look at your hands, once small and soft, and you see a stranger's hands. The calluses are thick, the skin is stained with grease and grime, and the knuckles are swollen from the constant, repetitive work. You have lost the ability to feel the texture of things, the softness of a piece of cloth, the smoothness of a polished stone. Your hands are no longer tools for play, they are instruments of labor, and they are slowly being destroyed by the very work they were created for. You realize with a sickening jolt that this is a permanent change. These scars are not going to heal. This is who you are now. A child whose body has been irrevocably altered by the demands of the industrial age. Physical decay is not just in your hands. Your back, once straight, is now permanently hunched from the endless hours of stooping and bending. The constant noise has left you with a perpetual ringing in your ears, a sound that you know will never go away. You have a persistent cough, a hacking, rasping sound that is a constant reminder of the dust you breathe every day. You are a child who is, in effect, dying a slow, agonizing death, a little bit at a time. This is not a sudden, dramatic end. It is a slow, quiet decay, a gradual loss of health and vitality that is happening right before your eyes. This is a stark and uncomfortable truth that is often overlooked. A common historical fact is that many children who worked in these factories and mines suffered from a wide range of diseases and deformities. From lung disease to rickets, a bone deformity caused by a lack of sunlight and nutrition. For you, the sun, a source of life and warmth, is now a distant memory, a dim light that barely penetrates the grime-covered windows of the factory. An interesting and little-known historical detail is the practice of workhouse contracts. Many orphanages and workhouses would essentially sell children to factory owners, signing contracts that bound the children to work for a set number of years, often until they were in their late teens. These contracts were a form of legal slavery, and they ensured a constant supply of cheap, expendable labor for the factories. It was a business model built on the exploitation of the most vulnerable members of society. You, too, feel like you are on a contract, a silent, unspoken agreement that you will work until your body finally gives out. The psychological damage is just as profound as the physical. Your mind, once a world of childish wonder, is now a place of anxiety and fear. You find it difficult to remember things from your past, from the time before the factory. The memories of green fields and a clear blue sky feel like someone else's memories, a story you heard once but don't quite believe. You are a child who has been stripped of their history, a person who has no past, only a grim, relentless present, the constant fear of injury, the endless noise, the profound loneliness. They have all left their mark. A deep, pervasive trauma that you will carry with you for the rest of your life. Historians still debate whether the physical scars or the psychological trauma of child labor was a more damaging force in the long run. You don't have an answer. You only know the reality of your own body, the constant aches and pains, the slow, agonizing decay of your youthful vigor. The scars of progress are not just on the land, they are on your body, your mind, and your soul. A permanent and painful reminder of the price you paid to build a new world. The world you inhabit is one of noise, grime, and ceaseless labor. But as the cogs of industry turn, so too does the world of ideas. You are a child who has been broken by the system, and you are about to hear rumors of a growing movement to protect children like you. These whispers of reform, however, feel distant and unreal, a faraway hope in a world of immediate, bone-deep suffering. You first hear the rumors from an older boy, a piecer like you, who has been in the factory for a long time. He speaks in hushed tones during your brief meal break, his voice a low murmur against the backdrop of the machines. He speaks of factory inspectors, men who are paid by the government to make sure the owners are following the rules. He tells a story about a factory owner who was fined for making children work too long. The story sounds like a fairy tale, a fantasy of a world where a child's well-being is more important than a factory's profit. You listen, but the story doesn't feel real. The foreman, the relentless hours, the constant fear, they are all very real. An inspector, a fine, a new law, they feel like something from a book, not from your world. This is a stark and uncomfortable truth that is often overlooked. A common historical fact is that early factory acts and labor laws were often difficult to enforce. Factory owners would bribe inspectors, hide children when inspectors arrived, or simply ignore the laws, knowing that the punishment, if it came at all, was a slap on the wrist. For a child like you, the promise of a law is a hollow one, a piece of paper that does nothing to stop the relentless turning of the loom. An interesting and little-known historical detail is the role of the climbing boys in chimney sweeping. The terrible conditions of these children led to some of the first public outcries against child labor. While the factory acts were a slow, grinding process, the horror of a child being forced up a burning chimney to clean it was something that even a hardened society couldn't ignore. The public outcry for these children was one of the first flickers of a larger movement. A quiet recognition that some forms of labor were simply too cruel to be tolerated. The whispers of reform are not just about laws. They are about a new way of thinking. You hear about men and women, reformers and philanthropists, who are speaking about the rights of children, the need for education, the importance of a childhood. These are revolutionary ideas, a profound and fundamental challenge to the world you inhabit. But they are just words. They are just whispers. You are a child who knows that a word is nothing when compared to the physical force of a factory machine or the brutal discipline of a foreman. The promise of a better life, of a world where you can go to school and play, feels like a distant and impossible dream. A cruel joke in a world where your only purpose is to work. Historians still debate whether the reformers and activists of the time were motivated by a genuine sense of humanitarianism, or if their efforts were a form of social control. An attempt by the middle and upper classes to impose their own moral values on the working poor. You don't have an answer. You only know the reality of your own world. You know that a promise of change is a fragile thing, and that the only thing you can truly count on is your own endurance, your own ability to survive one long, agonizing day at a time. The whispers of reform are a small, fragile light in the darkness, but the darkness is very, very real, and the light feels like it is a long, long way away. The whispers of reform have been a distant, fragile hope, a world of promises you could not believe. But one day, the promise becomes a fleeting reality. You are about to get a small, precious glimpse of what a different life could be. A brief, beautiful moment of hope that fuels your desire for change and offers a tantalizing taste of a world that is not defined by the clang of the loom. It begins one quiet afternoon. The foreman, a man who rarely shows any emotion other than anger, comes to you with an order that is as strange as it is unexpected. You and a small group of other children are to be taken out of the factory. Not for punishment, but for a special task. You are led out into the daylight, a light that feels shockingly bright after so many hours in the factory's perpetual gloom. The air, while still thick with the smell of coal smoke, feels fresh on your skin. You are led through the streets, past the cramped tenements and the grime-covered buildings, and you feel a profound sense of disorientation. A child who has been so long in one place that the world outside feels alien and new, your destination is a small, newly built brick schoolhouse, a place you have only heard about in whispers. You are not there to learn, but to help carry in a shipment of books, a task that requires your small, nimble hands. The interior of the schoolhouse is a world of wonder. The walls are clean and painted a soft, warm color. The windows are large and bright, letting in the full, unadulterated light of the sun. The air smells not of dust and oil, but of fresh wood and the faint, sweet scent of paper and ink. You feel a profound sense of peace, a quiet calm that you have not experienced in a very, very long time. You are given a book to carry, a heavy, leather-bound volume that you handle with a kind of reverence. As you carry it to a shelf, you catch a glimpse of the pages inside. They are filled with strange, beautiful drawings of animals you have only heard of in stories, of landscapes you have only dreamed of. You see a picture of a lion, its mane a riot of orange and gold, and for a brief, precious moment, you forget the factory. You forget the pain in your back. You forget the constant fear. You are just a child, looking at a picture, and you are filled with a profound sense of wonder. This is a stark and uncomfortable truth that is often overlooked. A common historical fact is that many of the early reformers and philanthropists, while fighting for new laws, also opened small schools and Sunday schools for child laborers, hoping to give them a taste of a life beyond the factory. These were often small, underfunded efforts, but for a child like you, They were a window into a different world, a brief, tantalizing glimpse of a future that felt both impossible and utterly real. An interesting and little-known historical detail is the presence of ragged schools, which were schools for the poorest of the poor, often run by volunteers in old barns or abandoned buildings. These schools, while not a formal part of the educational system, were a lifeline for many children, a place where they could learn to read and write, and, perhaps most importantly, a place where they could be children for a few precious hours. Your time in the schoolhouse is brief, but it changes you. You are a child who has always been told that your only purpose is to work, that your only value is in your ability to contribute to the machine. But in that schoolhouse, in that moment of quiet wonder, you realize that there is another kind of value, a value that is not measured in output or profit. You realize that you have a mind that is hungry for knowledge, an imagination that is starved for beauty. Historians still debate whether these brief glimpses of a better life for child laborers were a cruel form of psychological torment, a tantalizing taste of a world they could never have, or if they were a necessary source of hope, a small light in the darkness that gave them the strength to carry on. You don't have an answer. You only know the reality of your own world. You know that the memory of that lion, of that book, of that moment of quiet wonder is a powerful force. It is a dream that now burns brighter than ever. A quiet, fierce desire for a world where a child can be a child. And a book is not just a heavy object, but a window to a different, better life. The years pass. The child who once stood outside the factory, filled with a mixture of fear and wonder, is now a young adult, a person who has survived the brutal crucible of the Industrial Revolution. You are a living testament to the endurance of the human spirit. A quiet hero who built a new world with your own small, scarred hands. But the end of your time as a child laborer is not an end to the story. It is the beginning of a new one. A long, painful reckoning with the past and the slow. Dawn of a new era, of a new... You are a survivor, but you are not unscathed. Your body is a map of the pain you endured, the permanent hunch in your back, the calloused, gnarled hands, the constant ringing in your ears. The scars are a permanent part of who you are, a reminder of the price you paid for your survival. The memories of the factory are not just memories. They are a deep, pervasive trauma that you will carry with you for the rest of your life. The nightmares of the looming machines, the smell of the coal dust, the constant fear they are all a part of you now. A quiet, humming anxiety that sits in the back of your mind. A constant and unwelcome companion. The world, however, is slowly beginning to change. The whispers of reform you once heard from the older children have grown into a deafening roar. The reformers, the philanthropists, the activists, they have finally been heard. New laws are passed, laws that are finally enforced. The factory inspectors you once heard of in hushed tones are now a common sight. And the penalties for breaking the laws are no longer a slap on the wrist. The world, a world that was once blind to the suffering of its children, is finally beginning to see. This is a stark and uncomfortable truth that is often overlooked. A common historical fact is that it took decades of relentless activism and a slow, gradual shift in social attitudes to finally bring about meaningful change. The first factory acts were passed in the early 19th century, but it wasn't until the late 19th and early 20th century that child labor was finally outlawed in many countries. The change was not a sudden, dramatic event. It was a slow, grinding process, a testament to the stubbornness of a system that was built on exploitation. An interesting and little-known historical detail is the role of photography in exposing the horrors of child labor. As cameras became more widespread, photographers like Lewis Hine would go undercover in factories and mines, taking pictures of the children at work. These powerful, haunting images were instrumental in turning public opinion against child labor. putting a face to the abstract statistics and making the suffering of the children impossible to ignore. You, the survivor, are a part of this new world. You are an adult, a person who can finally speak for yourself. You tell your story to anyone who will listen. Your voice a powerful testament to the horrors of the past. You are a living history, a person who can finally say, I was there, I did that work, and this is the price I paid. Your words, once lost in the noise of the factory, are now a part of the chorus of voices that is demanding a better future for the next generation. Historians still debate whether the survivors of child labor were ultimately a force for change, using their experiences to advocate for a better world, or if they were a lost generation, forever haunted by their past and unable to fully participate in the new society they helped to create. You don't have an answer. You only know that you are a person who has endured a great darkness, and that your only hope is to use your experience to light a path for the children who come after you. The legacy of the children is not just in the factories they built, but in the new world they helped to create. A world where a child can finally be a child. So to 어려운 한 번이었으나 And so, our long journey through the darkness of the Industrial Revolution comes to a close. The machines have fallen silent, the child has grown, and the world has, for better or for worse, moved on. But the echoes of that time, the clang of the loom, the smell of the coal dust, the slow, agonizing decay of a child's body, they linger in the shadows of our history. It is a story not of a grand triumph, but of a long, slow, and painful reckoning with a past that is both disturbing and deeply human. As you drift off now, remember the quiet strength of the child who endured. The story is done. The noise is gone. All that is left is the soft blanket of sleep, waiting to pull you into its comforting embrace. You are safe now. Just close your eyes. Good night.